Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of the lineage trained who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on up to no old age and death and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvatiputra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Dozo gyana buje daze yana chuje yade su. Dodo jedo jemo jeno deje jaju choze che. Mare minze doge nyugo jene choze cheru na. Dene doje zaje doze yude lizo jase toye. Yodo judo juni jiri dalu binse jang yonlo ju o arabodo no di o arabodo no di o arabodo no di Tede juju chiro juze jang Dale demo me baro se Kadam dejo jolo do boy Lo do bo me no Lo do ya lo ya lo ya do ya do Sho ya me ya do Do ya ro ya Shangbo Dome Yun Ye Nang Zhu De, Chu De Du Yue De Dong Zhu Bi, Zhe Zo Gu Zong Zhu Ni Su Lian Mo, Yao Jin Xu Bi Ji La Su Wan De, Yao Yun Yu Mi Xiu Ji Lu Zhu Dong, Nao Wan Zhao Bo Zhi Bi Ku Ju Ji, San Jie Guan Zhong Bao Bao Yao Zi Song, Sang Mo Da Yue Ji La Su Wan De, Xie Zhu Da Bi Chung An A De Xiao, Ga Dang Dian Bi Mian Bo Zhong De De, Lian Jiu Dong Xie Gu Qi Song La Song, Ga Dang Nang Ma Nang La Su Wan De, Gang Jie Xin De Si Jie Zong Hua Mo, Mo Da Zhi Bi Wan Xiu Jie Zhe Jie, Dong A Dian Bi Da Bo Ke Zhu Jie, Yao Sen Jie Bo Jie La Su Wan De, Yao Song Ge De La Ma Do Jie Cheng, Gang La Gang De Xie Nian Qi Zong De, Qiu Dong Tian Mo Gu Zhu Sun Zi Bi, Ren Qian La Ma Nang La Su Wan De, Rang Jiang Sun Ro Gyun La Da Yue Mi, Ge Zang Ta Ba Zhi Bi Jiu Wen Jiu, Zhe Bi Zhi Bi Ta Gen Zhe Ba Yi, Sun Zi Xin Nian Nang La Su Wan De, Jie Wo Gu Du Yang Da La Ma Dong, Zhi Min Ju Ji Bi La Long Xue Jin, Sa Dong Nang Ji Yun De Rao Du De, Do Ju Chang Ge Gu, Yun Do Xiu Sang Jie Chu, Zu Ji Chu Nang Na, Xiang Chu Ba Du Da Ne Jiu Zu, Da Ge Qi Ji Ji Bi Su Nang Ji, Zhou La Bin Xie Sang Jie Zhu Gu Xiu Sang Jie Chu, Zu Ji Chu Nang Na, Xiang Chu Ba Du Da Ne Jiu Zu, Da Ge Qi Ji Ji Bi Su Nang Ji, Zhou La Bin Xie Sang Jie Zhu Gu Xiu Sang Jie, Yue Dong Zu Ji Chu Nang Na, Xiang Chu Ba Du Da Ne Jiu Zu, Da Ge Qi Ji Ji Bi Su Nang Ji, Zhou La Bin Xie Sang Jie Zhu Gu Xiu.哎，啊，他我说，他点的我说，我那简单的节能的那个时候，他当他秋时节了，节能的样，现在可是我说的种种的可以过了。那当我做给他对手说的，你进就我进我给谁呢？那我的解决的，现在我做给他的，他要告诉爸爸我做给几，他秋着干巴几生的了，他这两种呢，你秋着干巴几，你没不吃对的呀？你看看有就他们弄为的给钱不了啊？
So, as we all know by now, one of our Dharma friends, the senior Dharma friends, have permanently lost, and it is as the Dharma brothers and sisters, we should take this opportunity to really to pray and dedicate for her.
那你就从这种现在他就当还是在普遍人看到了小给确实这帮年，那你慢慢你培养着，那年就到可能了去上秋生的东北你就过来，那过来去这，冬天过来没把钱都过来，那些呢，这我你就落地过这情况了的，可能给到了我去，可能也去。可能是现在真把堂堂是这样嘛是个的，那你给这刚习惯的，我有点别的，让这特别说的，这个从那边我就是了的。
So I also had an opportunity to visit her on Thursday and able to introduce her the practice of bodhicitta and emptiness, and as well as the practice of Tonglen, which is giving and receiving practice. And I was told that, by her attendants that she's, her attention is not that good. But for me, when I was introducing her those practices, I felt that she was really paying attention, and she was nodding and looking at her physical gestures and her, appearances of facial appearances. I really felt that she's really paying attention to it, for which I am delighted to be able to help someone who is being on her, on the process of ultimate journey.
지 코로나기라 빠지네 샘버 빠트텐데 지지 아니는 전화 대응도 봐도 샘버 쪼도 거를 지다 근데 전화 되는데 아니 기간에 가만 배치 가만 최장은 내가 되는 지라네 가만 시신도 뭐진다 아니 방은 지잖아 아니 많이 슬로 아니 너무 배치 단단히 되어서 지 몇번 참여도 아니 최소 되는 지라 아니 최소 니에서 되는 지 몇번 찾았잖아요 아니 녀마이 지는 사달라다 많이 지는 저와 찾아서 아니 이게 방은데 네 처음에 지표 아니 제가 그저 주바를 못 지피게 패여서 라이드 있는 아이 받은 로비에 개면도 돼. 아니 가서 들려지네. 너무 찬소 소소한데 제거해야 돼. 찬소 제시해.
Yeah, I really felt that when I was introducing her all those practices, and I had a feeling that she's really paying attention to me, and then I also took some time to recite some prayers loudly in our presence. So by yesterday, I received a message by saying that she already had been passed away. And right after I heard about her demise, I immediately light the bottle lamp and then started doing prayers and dedication for her. And also, I was told that Venerable Rinpoche was also invited, for which, I feel very delighted, so that she can be surrounded by all the spiritual friends and teachers.
되지. 다 되지. 얘는 가서 데리고 가서 가서 나와되게 타만 연자네. 근데 저저 제라는 가만 정화지 제네. 두비 생활다 많은 데다 공화이게나 되게 사이 가만 정화지.
근데 송주 제일 배름지.
나 손주도 참아 받자네는 공화대 만장에도 가만 정화지 지당 가서 되게 좋아졌는데 들어와지라. 이제는 막 그거 좋아해나 좋아지 엔티 제대라는 거지. 공화대 만장에나 두비 생활다 많은 가
So given today is the last week of the month, we will also leave for a questions and answer session, and then also we will stop our teachings early, 15 minutes early, so that we can do some prayers, including recitation of Buddha Shakyamuni's name mantras and changes his mantras, 6 syllables.
아니 라마나 아니 제 라나 제신의 주의에 받지 라나 제신의 주의에 받지 예미 받지 될라 대받지 아니 라다 라냐 이래 단단 가서 거서 봐봐요 데리 거서 봐봐요 그지 중앙에 조미 받을 때 전에 냥도는 요 상가지네 다 대대 된다고 이제 타협이 쓰지 냥도지 점부터 엄벌라서 소신 대다게 생활라 근데 가운데 비대대 지도 사대의 요 상이지 이제 전부 지겠습니다 대받은 이제 홍이 아니 지금 가세야 지금까 제도도 지잖아요. 이게 아니 대우의 동요. 아니 지금 가서 가서 만들어서.
As usual, let's take a few minutes to meditate by visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni in front of oneself, in the space, surrounded by all those lineage gurus of stages to the path to enlightenment. And they are all those objects of refuge. In other words, enlightened beings such as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are compassionately gazing at us as ascension beings and imagining being yourself in their presence, and including our Dharma friend who passed away recently, and also all other sentient beings without exceptions, and imagining that as we cultivate irreversible faith towards object of refuge that we have visualized, and also cultivating compassion and extending your equal compassion towards all other sentient beings.
카차부지를 단단가서 마주노는가 강에도 만다다 신나라데 제다 내양요라데 메티너레도와 또 설명에 소리 가서 동해진지 선제 미전의 소속의 선발을 좋아하는 거 지래나 소속의 초사도 우리 제다기 되게 전시와 인자네 그 무수 지소는 저와 친구 차그래 개자제와.
So particularly at this point, that is very obvious to all of us. There's a very chaos situation going on in some part of the world due to the war, and many life has been lost, and many of them rendered homeless and living their own hometowns and migrating to the different countries, which is very unfamiliar to them, and undergoing tremendous amount of sufferings and inconveniences. And then also there are beings who are actually tormented by this pandemic, which is still lingering and giving so much trouble and suffering to all other beings. So let's also take this opportunity to include all of those and selecting all of them as our object of meditation and to whom we dedicate our merits.
안돼 당한테 들이 결론 쳐가지냐네 강원은 진행셔야지 주도 가르잖아 니 성조랑 되죠 뭐서네 아니 용다치네 니 저런 거지 송부셔야 강사지 상대위 양내 지를 봐现在电视呢没了个送就把的主是给人老样是这个数据节相应你这用起了今年节的
So with these motivations and the teachings that we are receiving today is the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Lama Songkoppa, which teaches us how to engage in the practice, beginning from relying on a spiritual master, all the way to the state of unlearned state of unity, which is the state of complete enlightenment, which is designed for each and every individual to engage in such practice and take such practice seriously. And the entire path, spiritual path, beginning from the right from the beginning all the way to the state of enlightenment is elaborated in this text.
안되지. 다 사제 영어도现在这一사제 시제. 주권 전부스 대비 현재 법에 저와 나만을 기바집이 주제 저와 저와님도 대비 저런이 시제도서 담방거죠. 아마 짓다 저이를 봐스.
So this will then, as usual, begins with reading this four major outlines, such as the greatness of the authors given in order to show the teachings as noble source, showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings, and how to listen to the teachings in which both teachings and the author are great, and the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions.
안되지. 다 사이종 뭐기 사제저 용코로 뭐좀 벌써나 니 사이 사제니 담방거죠. 아마 짓다 저이를 좀 발라니. So then the actual teaching is given under the headings of how to rely on the teachers or the spiritual teacher, which is the root of one's spiritual path. This will then be followed by the how to listen, how the students can train their mind after having relied on teacher. 다 되는로 제다자이를 발라니 뒤에는 니볼린 비슈피와다 니보 제달린 비츠니 다 도모르지 다 니보 제달린 비츠라니 아지 나자라 니바지 제다 니볼린 지고지 다 도모르지 니볼린 지고로서 주부 중요다 동모의 랑제를 만년선에 주부 제다 동모 주부 친비 랑제를 만년선에 주의지 다 도모님들자 다 주부 친비 랑제를 만년선에 저러서 대전한 주비고 세제 코나된 거 세제 제다 집이츠 세제는 쇼바로 주의지 다 도모님들자 다 세제는 쇼바로 제송 세제는 로바로 비비제세 로바를 레올로 선제 만주바데 바 로바로 비르 바니시바지 다 도모님들자 다 로바로 비르 바니시바나 로바로 비르 바니시바라 송 인사이 비진이 인사이 티바치 뭐줄로 저도 치바도 도제 티바로 더 쓰지 다 도모라 송 상세절로 발한데 좀 장내 제세제 담바송 존에 제단이 비수지 다 도모 니리사 다 존에 제단이 비출라니 칼로로 비시 델하반데 델라로 비리바지 다 도모 니리사 다 델라로 비리발라니 슈바질로 제다 치바다 가세 타마니로 쓰지 다 도모 리사 다 파세 타마니로 제라 라제델라 사제 제나 비칭가 인사에 상세 가서 신나다 하도지 편 네 대니 등에 되게 되게 되면 신나다도 대니가 관계 비전세 고랭에 버수실 넣지 나도 소가 또 타마데 다 소실로 송 신나로 나도 대니 소제도 넣지 아니 당아서 상 추선비 남바존에 파신 타마니라고 그래 대노에네 신나라고 그러면 아니 신나라 넣지 가도 되요
Having received the teachings on the bodhicitta, and now we are in this particular, and currently we're receiving the teachings on how to practice the meditative serenity.
내가 그런 가키고 해서는 생기에 대공부도 좋아라. 내 생을 세차도 땡차진 고비 된다라. 아니 신의 두고리. 때문에 뭐죠? 때문에는 로사진이 매봐. 레레기는 매봐. 차지 가서 자 대두르마도.
So now our practice, our spiritual practice is, purpose of a spiritual practice is to develop our quality of our mind, right? So in order to develop our quality of our mind, we need to have a clarity of mind and also the steadiness of one's mind. So without these two, it is not possible for us to develop our mental quality.
내가 그러지 마시오. 나한테래. 괜찮네. 당한서 거서 봐. 소소기 신내로 두고에나 내 신내 두어라. 가를 때네 신내 두고서 좋고데. 아니 랑 용침보기 맞제다 저와라. 아니 소소 뒤진낭이 슈침보여 받던데 자. 이모 시나서 가르슈 침보여 받나. 아니 동보 대가에 터시 되네. 대이 도쇼 되니라 메바체네 신의 주바데 레통보는 면은 초래 송다.
So now here, when we are talking about engaging in practice of meditative serenity, and what kind of object that is to be chosen for us at this point as initial practitioners, according to those great, the classic text written by the great masters of the past, for us, as initial practitioners, one should choose an object which can serve as antidotes towards the most predominant afflictions which is within us should be chosen.
당가서 신의 주바 고는 지고 코로나 지가 좀 배지 그 가버리다 제대로 신의 주부상 자기 되게 예전에다 간여 계정도 오더나 대스마 되네 지미반을 되게 리 간테지 있나요 아니 드르지게 토노라 통만이 보대때 아니 디 계정에 되냐라 가를 미바제 가를 지고도 제거여서나 아니 내가 배배때 당가서 충사도네 소설 안에도 보여 들어와.
Although that at this point we may not be able to engage in the practice solely to achieve meditative serenity or come abiding, we all know that we are a practitioner and we are engaging in our daily practices. When we are engaging in our daily practice, we should also know that your daily practice, such as recitation of mantras and chantings and so forth, is actually not just verbalizing, but all these recitations should become antidotes or antidotes towards our negative thoughts and emotions, and particularly the negative thoughts that are more predominant in us.
당연히 카세대에서 선서 제야 다다지 산제 무송도 주비 띵엔제다 띵엔제지 지비 제선라네 고레 바바당 타말레 디제시 비콜라 미네 띵엔제 주바 손라 호베 상추 좀베장 데시네 데 신네니 니데알량 데시네니 니데스 칸나도 데바 토바당 카시델라 미바오 손도 베지데이 레도
Along.
근데 미바오스 엔테스 마스도 내가 더 먹고 있더래 비비에지라 내가 말하셔.
So now here we will, begin to read from the text. It's on page 42, the third paragraph where it says, alternatively, Kamalashala's middle and last stages of the meditation follows to the sutra on the concentration, which perceives the Buddha of the present face to face, and Pratyatpana Buddha Samukha Vasti Samadhi Sutra, and the King of Concentration Sutra, in stating that you achieve concentrations focusing on the body of the Tathagatas. Also, the Master Bodhibhata explains the multitude of objects. Here, the serenity is twofold, that attained by looking inward and based on object of meditation viewed outwardly.
아저 데로한테 용라제나 아저 남바지게 신내 주고에는 뭐쳐와데니 디신시 비거든 상제 콜미네니 주거레스 다 쇼로바도 도우다 라다 담달미네 신내 중에도 아저 남바지나 이치미지 디신시 비거라 데니 주거레스에디 아니 단데디 시제게 농제도.
So now here we as a Buddhist practitioners, our practice of meditative serenity, the object of our meditation, the practice of meditation should be chosen as a image of Tathagatas, the Buddha's image. For those who are not non-Buddhist practitioners, they have their own way of choosing their meditative object of meditation, such as pebbles and stones, trees, and so forth.
당연 제시도 뭔가 영원의 전에 신에서도 고미사들이 고미세디 진짜라 뇌녀라 니보 땅에 이비 쳐그리 가서게 변에 싫어봤던 게 신의 중에 지나 뇌빈 뇌녀라 타치디 니보 따고요 그래서 가서게 변에 단지다 담에 간지 계셔게 말해다요 뇌빈 니모라 님이 마다나 강게 신의 집에 쓰고 말을 소소아
So now
신에서도 고미세디로
this when we speak about calm abiding, the calm abiding or the meditative serenity. The meditative serenity is the state of mind that is achieved by the higher levels. It is a heightened, state of mind. So therefore, in order to achieve such practice, in order to achieve or accomplish meditative serenity, first of all, one need to apply antidotes towards afflictions of the desirums. Even those who are not Buddhist practitioners or non-Buddhist practitioners, those who have achieved meditative serenity, have actually suppressed or gotten rid of the desire, afflictions of the desirums, without which it's not possible for us to attain meditative serenity.
카나데라 비바시네 시네 당이지다 카시데라 미바잖아 당연히 여러에 손에 들으셔 미바오지 나 칼라 나도 때발라 니데 류라 미바단 류라 템발라 미바오 텔라 류라 템발라 손데 류니라 하이 넘버 미바단 겐르라 소비 메두바 미바단 카창라 소바 샤체나 샤체 체바 젠라 미바오 류라 템발라 미발라 니데 우라 미바단 세마 참몰라 미바단 틸레라 미바단 여제 양라 여제지 양라라 미바단 가와단 데왈라 미바오 카시데라 미발라 니데 체바텔라 페발라 미바오 텔라 체바텔라 미바네 콜라 미바오 다 대제시 콜린 미바단 소나 미바오 시에 몽보시 시에 장랑 르데발라 대장상랑 준제바양 So
then here it says, of those two, looking inward is twofold, focusing on the body and focusing on what is based on the body. Of those focusing on the body is threefold, focusing on the body. Focus on the body itself is an aspect of deity, focusing on ugliness, such as skeletons, and focusing on the spiritual insignia, such as karbankas. Focusing on what is based on the body is fivefold, focusing on the breath, focusing on the subtle divine insignia, and focusing on the drops, focusing on the aspect of the light rays, and focusing on delight and bliss. Serenity based on object of meditation viewed outward is twofold, special and common. Of others, of those, the special twofold focusing on the deity's body and focus on the deity's speech. Adisha's commentary on his own lamp for the path to enlightenment, Bodhimarga, Pradipa Panjika also cites in this page. So now here, looking inwards is such as meditating by focusing on one's own body aggregates and imagining this one's body as a divine body, and also imagining the special insignia of, or the special hand implements of the deities at one's heart, and also of meditating on skeletons and so forth. Those are the looking inward, and then the outward, viewed outwardly, is visualizing the bodies of the Tathagatas. So one can also, think in that way. The looking inward, the practice of looking inward, is transforming oneself into the divine aggregates or divine body instead of one's ordinary, aggregates or ordinary body. This, which is the inward, looking inward, and this outward is visualizing Buddha or the Tathagata's image in the space in front of oneself and so forth.
Tatela Sanje Jikola Bena Senzing Chigana, and the Sanje Jikola San Karan Zingore, Tamipa Kadejago Salawa in Asodo, Tela Sanje Jikola Senzin Bane, Sanje Jessica by Yimbe, Sana Tayaba Jawatan, good number 6 Temba, Dena, Shanse the German Re, Shatan, Chopata, Penala Sobala, so La so be Shin Dang, Shadon. Shadon la soba di kasa shadon la soba jipa jangi shin mi pa chepa jele che shin de chewa dang dingen je jebi do chamba ta chi bi che yang sanji jesu chamba le menyamba la so bi yan den dang saha je lang ga na la yi ne ju shin do che chewa la so bi go ba mombo nang de yi phe da sanji ye la sha chi jepa 다다 산제 무슨 슈비 땡엔제전 도나 치 세와 슈베 고레 타말레 솜바타 녜바 데셰바 샤이 덴치 녜도스 녜서 도네 마제소 땡엔제제 자보 저 가사 대나 땡엔제야 주버 거바 쳬바젠다 셴야 샬라토비 미텐소와네 털라케바 예노 어소도 거비진서 거바데리다
So now here it talks of the reason of meditating the Buddha's image. It says, in this regard, to keep your attention on the physical form of the Buddha is to recall the Buddha. So it gives rise to limitless merits, special intensification of your meditative focuses on the field is in relation to which you amass merits through prostrations, offering aspirational prayers, and etc., as well as on the field in relation to which you purify obscurations through confessions, restraints, etc. This kind of meditation serves many purposes. As stated earlier in the extract from the King of Concentration Sutra, it has advantages such as you're not losing your mindfulness of the Buddhas as you die, and when you cultivate the mantra path in high state yoga, etc. The sutra on the concentration, which perceives the Buddha of the present face to face, give a very clear and detailed treatment of this benefit, as well as a method for directing your mind towards Buddha. Therefore, you should definitely come to know them from there, as Kamalashila states in his last stage of the meditations. Fearing verbosity, I do not write of them here. Consequently, it is skill in means when you seek an object of meditation by which you achieve concentration and also fulfill along the way some other special purpose.
당가서 대화랑로 다 대세시비 걸 미네 신의 중에 지나 소소라 가르페요 예르서나 대세시바 지서 제네 아니 소나타야 버지 사그레스 지송도.
So what is the benefit that when we choose object of one's meditation, Tathagata, when you choose a body of Tathagata as object of one's meditations, is now it has a numerous benefits, but particularly it will the benefits that the direct benefit that we may gain out of that is to recall the Buddhas and also accumulate tremendous amount of merits and virtue.
당가서 대세시비 걸 미베게 아니 세상 템버지 요아이나 다 이거네지 가서 멀메게 계시시와나게 샤피 줘봐 가르쳐서와이나 더 센터니 부수지 차고로.
So if one is able to stabilize one's meditations by choosing the Tathagata's body as one's object of one's meditations, then if one is able to obtain the clarity and appearance and clarity of the Buddha's image, then this will then establish a very strong connection and a very close connection with the Tathagata. And also, it is a very powerful practice. It is a very powerful practice of purifying one's negativity as well.
Any Labatung Sosomone Tandachi, Kosubaba, any Joashimando, the Shaggy, Chising, Tandakola, Lady, any Tejashi, Kudi, Tango, and no, tell me the Sena Chitosana, Tam Shuichi Sana Legro, and Chikayo, Sanji Jessica, Mibacheva Sondo.
So if one has already obtained the clarity, appearance and clarity of the Buddha or Buddha's the body of Tathagata, and at the time of one's death, and such appearance of clarity and appearance of the Buddha's body will be remaining within oneself, which has a tremendous amount of benefits.
And Tananga Timo on the channel, the Shibu Colami, Shenedrungena, that Timo Mambata, Sama Dojiti Padoji, Yansan Bicola, and the Lion and Jokandegona, and Senachella, and the Cheshi the Chever Sondo.
So if one is able to obtain this clarity and appearance of the Buddha's body, then it will also benefit, especially when one engages in the practice of high tantric practice, Vajrayana practices.
The Tamatele Ticholoja, Dena, Dingen Drew Bala Gupa Chepa Jen, and Shalatapi Shivisi, Middet Subane, Tolakeva, so at the Quad Langore. Sosugi Gupachi drew Tuba Cancella, and Shenet Druba the Nondola, and you need to know more switching on the time where inside Shenegi Mipa Karela Jago with the Shenegi Mipa Suba saying the Tokivachi Lacare Sondoa.
So here I guess again with the state once again it is important. It has advantage such as you're not losing your mindfulness of the Buddhas as you die, and when you cultivate the mantra path, it heightens deity yoga, etc. And then also it says underneath it says gives a very clear and detailed treatment of those benefits by citing from the Sutra of the concentrations and benefits, as well as a method for directing your mind towards the Buddha. Therefore, you should definitely come to know them from there.
ye to so de shu chen bo sheng je na de yu lo sho le ne pa ta so na shen ne dru ba dang de su shu chen bo me che ye pian ji ye re ta de mi de ta sa ma ji ji do do de xin do de le mi ba je na zo so na ko lo le se na de le gre ma do ha pa le ga ja da ke che me wa.
So while one is engaging in practice of meditative serenity, if one is able to practice in conjunction with applying antidotes towards 3 poisons, one will be able to subside those 3 poisons and will prevent the manifestation of the 3 poisons, which is a great benefit. Other than that, if one chooses a different kind of objects of meditation, such as trees, as stones, and whatever, something that, but although that you may be able to attain meditative serenity by establishing a clarity and steadiness of one's mind, one may not be able to, subside one's negative thoughts and emotions.
Dice, ta dice shi bi ku chen ra wa shi la mi bi ten shi je na as ta go ne ta ma le de la ne jo be to ma dice shi bi ku zu je ta to ma ta je ta tu ba sen ja ne shi ne ju ba sha de dice shi bi ku zu de yang se zang mi ka do je de se la sen da be je zong be jian ba ko je na na shu xin tao na zo ji sen jian ju dun zi ba yin, dun zi ba jun du yi la xie bie, de yi yun den de ba jie jin, xin wa dao go ba la su ba, xie wa xie la. Ji si do, de nian na shu ba yin du si wa, tong wa ju ba de ma tong ma yin na, tong wa ju ba de si do sam den xia wu, xie song xin, ding yin zi jia bo le zhang, song do. Ta pian de ji tong ne, 아니 고추고 다 고추 세그라다 알레 또 마치 로샤라지.
So how do you use something like the bodily form of Tathagatas as an object of meditation? Kamala Shila's last stage of meditation states, in that regards, practitioners should first fix their attention on whatever they may have seen and whatever they may have heard about the bodily form of Tathagata, and then achieve serenity. The bodily form of Tathagata is a golden color like of refined gold, adorned by the signs and exemplary features, and dwells in its retinue, and affects the aims of living beings through various means by continuously directing their mind towards it. And yogis develop a wish for its good qualities and cool laxity, excitement, and so forth. They should continue meditative stabilization for as long as they can see it clearly, as though the Buddha was sitting in front of them.
되지. 되지 가서 변화 미바터네 되지 시비콜 란지 된지 나가 미바치 비콜라 코지 나네 슈시 터한소지 선지지 된 제시바 제도 일라 샤세데 되지 가서 대 제금도 되지 대신 시비콜 미바치 비콜라 터한소지고는 선지 된 제신비 미바데 제도 제거도 내가 수지하고거든.
So here one thing that we need to remember here is now by reading this particular paragraphs, this gives us a new idea of meditating, visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni. Normally, when we visualize Buddha Shakyamuni, we're simply visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni in the space in front of, in the space before oneself, surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But here it says, now the bodily form of Tathagata is a golden color like of the refined gold, adorned by the signs and exemplary features, deals with its retinues, and affects, which is the key point here is now, and affects the aims of living beings through various means. This is what we are normally we are lacking. So we should also include this the effects, the aims of living beings through various means.
Tendriki Tejishi Kondo, the Kuzu Tendriki Mibache, Jibicola, Tendriki Koson to Sanjaki Koson to the Yuden Sana Tonsoina, and Yedela Doba Chibicola, and she want the Goba Shoa Shigres. And Tendriki Shoa, Yogoba Cheba Kashijila, Tashine Drubi Negola, Jissing a rang in Dintola Temba Shuba, Sewa Shuba, and the Mantoba Tesito, and Shenete, Tating and Zitella, Yabazaki is Pavatongo.
So here one should commit oneself, up until I really establish my meditative concentrations on the chosen object, which is body of Tathagatas, as if the Tathagata is actually, present in your in front of yourself, just instead of just imagining the form of Buddha's form, but committing yourself until I actually have an actual appearance, stabilize myself, my meditative stabilizations, establish myself until I have an actual appearance of the Buddha's body in front of myself. So which this kind of practice will then, subside or the subdue, mental laxity and excitement.
Jason says, I think the Jabo Lechang. Sage Kado Tabi Kuline, Jeten Gombo Pinton Zebate, Mipa Tela, Kangi Senjuba, Shanchu Semba, Tenyaja, Jesha, Shesomba Tab, Mipi, Ten Shao, Teyan, Satulo Jebatan, Ranjit Shuba, Sendeba Nile, Shimane Debajo, Checheshi, Debatimo Yokotan, Yang, Timbe, Ranjit True Simba, Sendebi, Namba Shao. Hondo Saint Ganzumbi Shir Minten Suna Jukutan Lumala Sobi Tembi Kushin de Lebashi Zayan Zela Yang Tashi Day Tsema Yila Sonji Amada Tsema Zone Yila Yit Chawala Gonsu Shu Yana Lami Lepa Dateba Tobi and Sanjin the Yingwa Chadu Shuba Midetsewa Shawo Song.
So now he says the king of Concentration Sutra also says that you should use this kind of object of meditations, the glorious protector of the world, with the body, the color of gold. The bodhisattva whose mind engaged in this object is said to be in equipoised. Of the two ways to do this, newly imagining the Buddha's form and visualizing the Buddha's form as though actually present, and the latter has a distinct advantage in developing faith and fit within the context of practice common to the Bodh Sutra and Tantra vehicles. Therefore, use a visualized image of the Buddha's form as though it is already actually exists. And when you seek your object of meditations, the basis upon which you first keep your attention, look for an excellent painting or the sculpture of the teacher's body and view it again and again, remembering its features, and firmly familiarize yourself with the mental appearance of the object, or seek your object of meditation by reflecting upon the meaning of the eloquent descriptions of the Buddha's form, which you have heard from your guru, and make this image appear in your mind. Furthermore, do not let the object of meditation have the aspect of painting or the sculptures. Rather, learn to have it appear in your mind with the aspect of an actual Buddha.
다 던르기 미텐치 제베콜라 나조 미텐 제베콜라 근데 로사데 제바당 당신 주주버세디 지 롱월에 차지네 미바 제바당 뭐 베네 로몬다보다 로마 베네 루샹에 데나 사이코이나 로이코이나 처음에 로마세 델 나를 제단도 루마셀라도 맞아 르르 루마데 가서 라 루마셀라고
Aim to long.
kasi luma sela gudu lu sha nga zo lu ya te
No.
cha ma de ka je ten ri ko ji le me pe te la pe na ko ra shin tu se ma lo me do ka je te ni je na ne pe na ji je mo te sha nge de ji lai mo na ne ya bo je ne lo le ya bo cha ji ne ni yin wa la song sha wa yin na de le te ba che se me do je long mo le che ba je tu wa yin na te se tembo ya ma song yin na ka je te ni no shi ma za wa yin song do
And that
le sa de je ba da ran xin ji shu ba nian jian ne shi ma de che de ba che 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 song do de ba tu mo yi ge dang ting guo de song yong de da ga zuo dan de do ji ne len jian de de xie xi bi guo de wo ji ji de bi guo de wo ji la mi ba che sha de la ni de ba che da lo dian che che wo de song ye sa de song de do
also. So it says, of the two ways to do this, all newly imagine the Buddha's form, visualizing the Buddha's form as though actually present. The latter has a distinct advantage. The latter, I think, is referring to the, first one should take one's time and view the Buddha's image. Not, you should choose the Buddha's image again as a very authentic image of the Buddha Shakyamuni. Or if you are, if one chooses, if one do not have any, statues or the sculptures, one can choose a paintings or tanka, which is very authentic, and then viewing that Buddha's image and again, and with this, one has more advantages of accumulating merits.
de ji je no de che da ga zo ran xin zhu se de ga ja chu chen bo de ge cha de ni ji ma de de ba ti mo de tin ba se de pa na de je xi bi ko se de chen da pe je ge shu ma jeng de ji la yong da ji ni ji ro da ga zo ge sang ha de de ba che de wu jian da na jian da mo bo xi ji zhe yo ro de me ba de ji la ko min ro sang de de me che ba me de ye ji da yang da la mi le ba da zhe song de la mi le ba da zhe de da de ji xi ba ye be ne shu lu ji la da zhe ka da zhe ba de ni la xin ne ma zhu ko no la ji lo le ya bo ji cha ji da ta ji de den go no du ne ta ji bi ka la de ni ran le ma do de xian sa che jian da le zhou mo ge mi ji ye cha gi dian go do.
So here, when one should set a motivations, first of all, before one engage in actual practice of meditative serenity, one should choose one's object of meditation very carefully and familiarize that object of meditation, mentally familiarize yourself with the object of meditations by viewing at the Buddha's sculptures or the paintings, or that described by one's guru of the Buddha's body, descriptions of the Buddha's body by one's guru and so forth. And once you have actually stabilized this object of meditation, so familiarize your object of meditation with oneself, one then remain focused on paying attention, observing that object alone. When one is actually engaging in practice of meditative serenity, one should not, change one's object of meditations.
De ta ge me ye chang ji ba lo da me de ju ge dang le ma la su bi nang ba me xia wa sang je ngo je nang ba jian de cha wa la lao bo wa ji ka ji zu gun de de re zu gun de de xia ba la me ge da ne ha gong xie ba lo be yi xie de ji ga ba ne xin de le de ding yan jiang ong bi xie ba le mi zhu ji yi ji xie ba le zhu ba yin be ding yan jiang ngo ji mi ba ne yi ji xie bi ngo yi yin be de la sen zong gu bi xie gong go ba yin bi xie dang ma xie ba da de mi ngo ji den ji lang zu ne xia wa la mi go ba song bi xie ro gu yi cha cha ra ni le sa ra ba la mi ne ra ba la mi ba la ten ne xie ma cha wa mi go ba shuo xian ne song xin Nyuan Lao Rapa Shid Chalawa Kui Rarine Miden Shago La Chepa Kechawa Ne Sundu Chepa Taji Pingin Zin Denda Shi Mantu Patu Mipa Ri Midimba Mombo Pona Tingin Zin Shepa Tingin Zin Shepa number Tanje de Merode Mipa Menda Mombo Puji Tingin Zin Gana Shenen to be Ge Chambo in Jubi Shoro or something. What about the Lord in Pansajari?
So here, now some set an image before them and immediately meditate on it while staring at it. While staring at it, the Master Ishide rejection of this practice is excellent. He says that concentration is not achieved in the sensory consciousness, but in the mental consciousness. Thus, the actual object of meditation of concentration is the actual object of mental consciousness. Therefore, you must keep your attention on this. He also states what I explained above, that you have to focus your mind on the appearance of the actual concept or mental image of the object of meditation. Furthermore, there are both subtle and gross features of the Buddha's bodily form. It is stated elsewhere that the first you focus on the gross features, and later then these are solid, and you must focus on the subtle. As experience also shows that it is very easy to um, raise an appearance of the gross features. You must develop your object of meditation in stages, starting with the gross features. So the stage starting with the gross features. And especially important point is that until you have accomplished the satisfactory concentration as explained below, it is never appropriate for your cultivate meditative concentration by shifting your focus on many different types of object of meditation. For if you cultivate concentration by moving many dissimilar objects of meditation, it will be a great impediment to achieve serenity. So let's take a break here, 10 minutes break.
All right. 당연 단지 된 적이 됐으시죠. 아니 맞죠. 로가 좋아 제주시. 아야. 가시게 시내주게 걸어 미기수게 미기술을 따내 시내주 주거스랑에 주거레스나랑에 요레스. 근데 로베 이제데 까바레스. 아니 시내생에 이제 시발을 주거레마도 네 엄비 시발을 주거마레 송도아. 이게 좀 해제죠.
Let's say, let's say, sorry. Yeah. So here, now again, the great master Ishita's rejection of someone's, explanation on how to focus on the image of meditations. So it says, some sat at an image before them and immediately meditated on it. Well, staring at it. So here the Yeshida's rejection of this practice is excellent. He says that concentration is not just achieved in the sensory consciousness, which is true, but in the mental consciousness. That's the actual object of meditation of concentration. It's the actual object of the mental consciousness. It is not, essential for the consciousness. It is of not for the eye consciousness, but rather for the mental consciousness.
Cheba dingen zi kandichi rugo na thoma mipa chile tse che di mipa tela sena ma chude loi sena de tencha de male de bado ni mipa de poa ina dingen zi tempo yon yi gere ni jin po je ma le son do.
So once you have chosen the actual object of meditation, then you should remain firm on that object of meditation. One should not change, or one should not move, or one should not set a new object of meditation, because if you do so, then this will become obstacles for achieving meditative serenity, because meditative serenity, the object of meditative serenity must be chosen. The ones you have chosen, it should not be changed.
Takozo misegi joa yodange joa kai temena ngaso maslo da ro. Jo de tanda ro chiba chene pe jeba du. Ta de jeba yogo ye goba de lai ba. Nga so ge shochi ne ma do dong jao ma re ma do. Chi lo chi gang je ne ya chi sanje sa da to ba ran chi le chi che go na de ngo ma chu ne ro sa che me do. De yin je ro.
So there are similar explanations that we find with regard to the practice of meditative serenity, pretty vast, so which is very beneficial, because bringing from many different authentic texts, the classical texts, and cite it in this stages of the path to enlightenment, which is very, very beneficial. So for us, if we really want to engage in practice to gain a state of enlightenment, this is the real practice we should begin with. So if you have questions, I will take some questions. If not, then I will continue reading the text itself.
Rinpoche, I have a question about having a single object of meditation. And particularly in tantric practice, the generation stage practices involve various activities that one does and the visualized deities do. Is this considered a single object of meditation, or how do you reconcile this? I know in completion stage you are focusing on the dissolution of all this, and then there's a single object. But how about in the generation stage?
And the Tinzo the penalty Sorem Koda Salon Tigle Marcomachi Koyanchik Mancha Kochogum to Shatu Gore in it and the Kerim Gikalia and it's not so what Dumo Mangushia Kerim Kalia Kumgodi Kalia and the Anticalia Shinelia Migden Chiksha was saying you couldn't borrow kites can do the shiver now it's called those they can do can say when I said
Then it's na kasi ye gang ne chi share bena sama ji jong chi ba chen ma to la tong la shen ne de do ge bi chao ri se cha ba den ji lo de yu de sama ji jong den de no lo la che yu de ne shen ne de la tong ni yin no la ne nge so ya ma de se chi lo ke jen se ka de se na je rin ko lo gang wa de ni che ba chi xin da yi le nya ba ju xin chen de zhe ma chen ne ne gang ge nyong de ten yu bi ka la ani yin chi mi ji shen ne ho de do bi cha ba ye ma de es 아니 인지 메지기 다나 가서 레 통보하지 토마신에 주고여서나 아니 인지 메지 가르사 미빠질레 샤네 마도 시간 개념 말이 조간 개념도 시간 도서에나 아니 딩엔데 추구레스 지나에는 하나로 계시에는 미세비샤르 미세마도 소아
So
통보 계셔로
we have touched a little bit about that during our previous teachings in this chapter itself. It says that except for the tantric practices, when the initial practitioner are engaging in this practice of meditative serenity and special insight, there is a proper order or the proper sequence to practice, because prior to engaging in the practice of special insight, for the initial stage of the practitioners, practice of meditative serenity should be completed prior to engaging the practice of special insight or lakton. Whereas in tantric practice, there is no such proper sequence. While one is engaging in the practice of visualization, the practice of visualization of generation stage, one can also be able to accomplish both meditative serenity as well as a special insight simultaneously. So there's no such proper sequence. But for us as initial practitioners, when one is setting oneself to engaging in the practice of meditative serenity and special insight, and for us, it is more beneficial and appealing to engage in the practice of meditative serenity by choosing one single object without changing the object.
다 가서기 최바지 가려서나 최바지 과 가려냐 두고 선데레 변은 하 있는 저 방에나 슐로라 넘버 인거만 변은 콤바를 진다 라와지 노로라 마도 라와텔 기본도 말이 라와 되게 최바 이건 초고래 최바 인식 그래 변은 하 있는 저로 오지 강고에나 변은 제저 저만에 미 제는 거고는 제저 저미 우유 조도네 미小的우유 조도 니 자가 칸야나 자가 칸기 타이 메르네 이게 조하기 우유 받는 양만도네 간제 라와치 노로 장라 거라 저거마도 델레 셴바기 남는 절로라 이잉 말이 되게 치바였다.
So the difference between the common practice of meditative serenity and uncommon practice of meditative serenity, according to Tantra, in the context of tantric practices, such as the practice of deity yoga, although that one is visualizing the complete form of deity and its selection mention of the deities and so forth, you are having a multiple object of meditations. Yet at the same time, your mind is not, overpowered or controlled by mental laxity and excitement. You're being on one boundary. You're not going out of that deity and the selection mention of the deity. So therefore, this will not let your mental wandering or mental excitement or the laxity take control of one's practice of meditative serenity. For instance, if one is visualizing the deity, one is engaging in the practice of the deity of Mother Tara, the Venerable Tara, just think about, we visualize the Tara, the complete form of the Tara, beginning from the crown of Tara all the way to the lotus feet of Tara, and the selection mention of the Tara. So your meditation is fixed in that boundary. You are not going out of that boundary. So therefore, your mind will not be overpowered by the mental laxity and this excitements or the mental wanderings. So therefore, it has a very special or special practice that is designed for tantric practitioners, someone who has gained certain levels of spiritual realizations.
다 콤바 차장에나 배나 콤바 다 라이 내조 던저 가면이나 콤바 코로나로 콤바 꼬라 저그마도 콤바 쇼로 로그 말에 다 도쇼의 신의 조이드 계시시디 콤바 노게 아니 다 같이 가래 있는 지 코로나지 지 강지체 먼저 장카도 질 빼자나 상하디 지리 쭈바도 꼬라 저 되그래 아니 도쇼의 신의 장카 지 지고라 메데체 괜히 기체바래 거제 자체쇼레마도 나이도 쇼로 땅 말에 가제
So
신의
now,
중에 지나려다 상할 때문에 신의 중에 지나
so if the difference between the practice of meditative serenity in the context of Tantra and the Sutrayana, the difference between the two is now with regard in accordance with the Tantric practices, they set multiple object of meditations, but there is certain limits. It won't let your meditative, it won't let your mind go out of that set boundary, the designated boundary. For instance, let's talk about from 1 to 10. This is the boundary. So you have a 1 to 10 boundary. So you will not go out beyond that. If you go out of that boundary, then there's a great chances of, having a mental wandering or excitement or the mental laxity. It is therefore, one should strict within the boundary. Think about visualizing, engaging in the practice of the deity yoga. And while one is engaging in the practice of deity yoga, one is also involved in visualizing the selection mentioned, the particular selection meant of the particular deity. So you are not going out of that. If you go out of that, then the mental laxity and mental wandering will overpower us. Whereas in the sutra system, it says it's just one pointed, choose a one meditative object of meditations, not more than one. So that's the difference. In the tantric, you can choose a multiple, but in the tantra, that's only one. One sutra is one object of meditation.
당가 저기 지 상하세는 레랑도 거를 시에들마도 베데 상하 하이 내줄라 때네시 베데 상하기 하이 내줄라 지대적으로 강이나 하이 내줄라 때비 신의 더 창의지나 티모이 신의 된 것도 로비 페이지 잡아도 캔이 투구를 소리 지어래 로아 먼저 마소바 페이지 때는 로트에 가보 인도 하이 내줄라 고아야 벌레가라 동반이로 고아 슈치 몰래고로아
Although that
등가서 다 제바 제리 배치 세 통보를 상하니 배치 요즘 말서도 나이나 라이네 지대적으로 강요로 하기 라이네 요때는 신의 통에 가서 지나 규모의 신의 모두 손비 처세 당자지 자샤와이나 다시 동하고
although for myself, when I look at that, someone who is engaging in practice of deity yoga, and with with the high levels of realization, with the real levels of tantric realizations, I'm pretty sure that they have actually, all of those practitioners have actually completed their practice of meditative serenity in accordance with sutra system. Without that, when we say that there's, when we read and explain, it is kind of easy for us. One can simultaneously achieve meditative serenity, especially insight, by relying on practice of generation states and so on and so forth. But if you actually engage in such practice, it is almost impossible to gain such, practice of realizations of deity yogas without prior knowledge of meditative serenity in accordance with the sutras. So because why the reason I'm saying this is because when someone is engaging in the deity yoga, precisely and authentically, in other words, and this individual must have a proper realization of emptiness. And the proper realization of emptiness must be achieved by means of achieving meditative serenity and so forth. So therefore, whoever is engaging in practice of deity yoga, any classes of within 4 classes of tantra, whoever is whichever the class that you are engaging in practice of tantra, and such individual, the deity yoga practitioner, must have actually achieved the meditative serenity in accordance to the sutra system.
Rinpoche, I have a question. It's about the bardo. And I remember when my mother died, I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead for 49 days, and also when my father died. And I remember the descriptions of the bardo and how frightening those images are, and also how confusing I've been told it is. So will the practice of meditative stabilization help us when we get to the bardo? Is my first question. And then my second is there anything we can do to help Jocelyn in these 49 days? Or is there anything we can do that would be detrimental to her finding her way through the bardo?
Bardo ki te che of the morong nyama and che ji chong song song do me amla de don't story kable bardo ki ne namja ti ge ma ke test love yin song do la na je pala kong so be kable to che bin ine de bardo ki de namja tak miguel ke lo to de chung na lia bardo kable ya tik chik 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 su ro we kan da chik jing na jen ge ne to da ani chik 가서래 다지 송년다 맨나서 차야다 근데 연구협에 망고시티나 된거 도송도 근데 대체변한다 당연히 안다 단 소소한다 즉 소신 내배 갑리야 단데 신의 당인데 접토베나 엔 바도의 갑리야 되게 소소리야 펜더럽 쉬어라베스 직지 예베데 단다 다 제슬랜드의 공부 쪽인데 단다 모샤겐들이야 먼저 샤시시게 파랄이야 나란지 몰이야지 미세 펜더 제도야다 안 바돌이야 근데 징나메요 안다지 캠면도야 캠제미게 못하에 don달이야 완전원이 뭐라리야 뭐스 펜더 토비야 아니 지 가리어레세라시 어디니레시
제가 받은 짓을 하세요. 제가 집발에 그냥 받은 짓을 하세요. 냐와 짓을 하세요. 다 세대 이때라 아니 받을 짓을 하 창고에 레사야나 다래. 그냥 매 받어에나 로아테다 되게 받어에나 됐다 되 튕비게 주튕비래르데 하다를 니마 샤보 된을 싸고 뭐 된을 녀고 다 샤보 된에서 되면 라니 로아 강기 지와래에나 됐다 튕바되게 지와다래서나 아니 바둑이 세세된 니마 된래 다 니마 된게라 지스로 녀고 무거 생이데 아니 다 라니게라 아니 게자게 답체 여매요 아니 게자다 첨부여서나 바둑이 이런 거 되고 말이야 다 게자는 매겨 슈첨부 신이나 다 참매기 레드려나 다 바둑 녀무거네 녀와 남이래 제로에 아니 되게 레요 다 그저 간거 레지 정원에 세세라 니마 된래
So here, now, although that we find in the descriptions of the bardo, there's a frightening image and frightening circumstances and experiences going through a very, frightening experiences and so on and so forth. Yet at the same time, whether one goes through such frightening experience and having an image of frightened, very dreadful image and frightening image and so on and so forth. It really depends on one's accumulation of merits and virtue during one's lifetime. If one is a good practitioner and one has accumulated sufficient merits or ample merits and virtue during one's lifetime, then one will not go through this, experiences, the Bardo experiences. And so here now, think about someone who actually passed away and who is bound to take a rebirth in hell realms. And such individuals will experience a very extraordinary, frightening experiences will go through in accordance with what kind of, a rebirth that individual may take, will have in the future. And if one is taking rebirth, if one is in a sudden to take a rebirth in the human realms, and such individual will not go through this kind of frightening experiences during the Bardo. So this is all based on all the whether one is having a positive experience or the negative experience or the frightening experience or the peaceful experience. It entirely depends on one's karma, whether one has more the karma of taking rebirth in a high rebirth or taking rebirth in a low rebirth and so forth. It is not fixed in one, Bardo experience for all individuals. This is not so, because it really depends upon what kind of karma that you have, because the Bardo is affected by karma. It is a Bardo a result of one's karma. It is not something that everyone will go through experiences and so forth. For instance, if someone who have engaged in a very negative actions, such as negative actions, 5 boundless actions, and so on and so forth, and such individual again is sudden to take a rebirth within in a hell realms and so forth, and such individual will have a tremendous amount of sufferings even within the Bardo state in it as well.
다 바도기 체제대 샤보 된체 다 샤보 된된을 체는 가세 먹고 가세이나 아니 제와데 아니 샤보 시즘네 제와 마라바 미시리 되네 소소게 된디 때는 인디 가데 때는 제와래 된디게 제베 때라 샤보 된디 제는 아주 배박이 노세잖아 아니 시제 셰거보다 송르에데 아니 베나 카신 잔 벤발을 줘나 아니 샤오치 시대 제자 파상들라 아니 다 남이 준비되는 제거래 다 계시 다 니마 뎀비토를 시고야나 디지 잡땡이 쓰더니 초사베 된다라 아니 디방게도들 제에 아니 배발은 써야래 당고서 되게 제고야나 다 이나 다가 소소서 레토게 데 딘치 대바도야 거 만한데 저 아니 만한데 다도나 야보로와.
So here now the Bardo's lifespan is 7 days, as we are all familiar with. Each and every 7 days they change their Bardo body. They go through a slight experience of dying and again coming into existence and so on and so forth. It goes on until 49 days. And after 49 days, then whichever the rebirth, based on one's karmic, based on one's karma, the individual will take a rebirth, whether in high realms or the low realms. So it is therefore every 7 days, within this 49 days, every 7 days, if one is able to engage in the practice of purifications and engaging in the virtuous deeds and so forth, will help the individual that who is passed away, who passed away recently, and it is said that if in the Tibetan we have a system of engaging in inviting the gurus and Rinpoches at home and engaging in certain practices or deity practice and so on and so forth to help the individual who passed away in each and every 7 days until the 49 days. So we have a belief that there is a possibility that one can actually help the Bardo beings to have a better rebirth, or to actually give them a right path to embark on to take a rebirth in a better rebirth, to the better high realm. Sorry. So here now, it is good that if each and every individual, if we can do some practices every 7 days until the 49 days of our death, will really help her. But also, it is also okay to organize some prayers in one of the 7 days, or the 14 days, or 21 days, or the 49 days, whichever at the Gudi Center or the Kajiling Center, if we can gather all together and do some prayers, which can also be advisable. So now we left only 15 minutes. There's no questions, so let's spend our 15 minutes in reciting.
I have a question, please, please, please. May I put one question in?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Do not shift among many objects of meditation, says the text. Well, in my time as a Buddhist studies, I have been given 25 objects of meditation, 25 practices. And now that I am 80, I have settled on 3 of them. So my question about do not shift, does that mean do not shift within one meditation session, or is it okay? As I said, I'm focusing on 3 main practices now, and I don't shift within that practice, but I am shifting between 3 basic practices. So please clarify what this means, do not shift among many objects.
Ma chicho peryo mare sondo was and the gene kablia de shine chegres gegen chagres to sumbare in the mora and the nama namsan the chik gombe kablia komjave kablia komja meeting is sangas and the tensions when you sang and none in the border color capture the meeting pogi the meeting sumba to pepe jemo de chik karsore the meeting to get 대강리야 다가 셈 지금 자지 비게 네토야 차디스 그래서 다디 다간다지 미덴 뻘 주어로 봤어 되게 컨데스 나송도
다들 저기 단대신에 의견 고추매와 혼도로 다 대노로를 저렇게 송게 노로로 밑에 가래야 쇼티 세다네 아니 될라 강 군리텐토도 되나 아니 저렇게 단다발을 다디 제셔야 돼. So
it is a good practice, you are not actually engaging in actual meditative serenity, so that you are not choosing you don't have to choose one single object. You're in the prerequisites, the practice of meditative serenity. You are on the process of preparatory or the preparation of engaging meditative serenity, which is very a good way of choosing many objects, as many as we could, whichever that then later on, when you are actually determine yourself or you are actually committing yourself and you actually understand that you will now commit yourself to engage in actual meditative serenity, then you should choose one object. Whichever the 25 objects, out of 25 objects, whichever that is appealing to you, you can choose that object and then carry on your practice, actual practice of meditative serenity. But it is okay at this point, when you are actually in a preparatory preparation stage, you can choose as many objects as you can.
단단하고 종종의 것에 있는 것에 냥도라지 냥도라 유베 메바치 잖아요. 덤버 투병원데 이게 투교네 on minimum on say the ha train the to go go tell you that train ani ji nga to nan ka ka ma ka ne ni ta da chen de ko la so be chen de no je ni to so ni sa ta di so gi sa bi di di de chang ji du ko de se ge number ma ta ne ani de le shi gang ji de ju ba che ani di je ma de ni la ani de se bo gi ju ba ne ni che ta non to ta 아니 연대타지야 패신제 송산에 주부담비 저우도 치송 상년의 짓든지 지금이 받잖아요. 동보 투비 생활대 강 배정에 따라서 안 되지랑 이죠. 아니 바바신의 지기에서 안 바바신의 지기 집에 가라. 양 집에 아니 야 신로 주비 가라. 아니 니지 전부터 동반이 로랑질의 집에 미받던 저잖아요. 가지 지원의 새로 통제도 아니 세단데 미기 신년만지 니신도 제스 종이 줄을 화샤와이나 아니 게이신이 니 제스 종 아니 데라라니 아니 도바콘의 컴퓨터들에 산제살은 로이기 아니 된적이 저와기네 야달라마도 세야나기
So now let's before we recite our this main mantras of the Buddha Shakyamuni, I will give a short introductions of visualizations while you are reciting the mantra. So now, visualizing, one visualizes Buddha Shakyamuni before oneself in the space, not just as an image or nor as a statue, paintings and so forth, but actual aspects of the Buddha himself. And so then imagining that you yourself being in the Buddha's presence, along with the person who passed away recently, with the Jocelyn, in other words, and then one again visualizes at the heart of Buddha Shakyamuni, the mantra garlands, Tatyata Muni Muni Mamuni Soha, in the heart of Buddha Shakyamuni, from which the light rays emanates and filling entire space without exceptions. And by means of radiance of the light from that mantra garlands, purifies all the negativities of entire sentient beings, including the person who passed away recently, and imagining that all of their bodies, including oneself, an individual who passed away and who are actually being in this world, present, future, and so forth, visualizing all of them, all of their negativities are cleansed and transforming their body into clear as crystal. So then again, imagining that from the mantra garlands, nectar and the light, the yellow nectars and the lights, emanates and touching the bodies of entire sentient beings, and all their sicknesses, diseases, and everything will be purified and pacified, and they established a long life, to have a long life, and with it free from sicknesses, and achieving all these qualities of the teachings and the realizations of the Buddha. With this, again, we visualize, we then engage in, we are then reciting the 6 syllable mantra of the Avalokiteshvaras. While one is reciting that, imagining that you are, may myself and all beings be able to generate uncontrived compassion and wisdom realizing emptiness. And may I be able to follow the qualified spiritual teacher in the future, and may all other beings, including myself, in all our lifetime, be able to follow the authentic and qualified spiritual teachers, and so that the spiritual teacher will lead us establish us to the state of Vajradhara.
Doge doje shaje rizhong Zhenje mendo deje bonjang ba seje nembo dabo je Shaje jeve dana shanze lo Mene mene ma mene yezo O 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 mene mene ma mene O mene mene ma mene yezo 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 O mene mene ma mene yezo Mene mene ma mene yezo Mene mene ma mene yezo O mene mene ma mene yezo Mene mene ma mene yezo Mene mene ma mene yezo O mene mene ma mene yezo Mene mene ma mene yezo Mene mene ma mene yezo O 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 jana to yezo to mene to so kan to de be so ne de ye bo to de je wa no ju na tra xie bia wa de no so sha dong hu lu ji be je wo xie dong ge wa zong be song de dong kan na kan de de na de de zhen ba xi de ze na shang zi lo ma de be 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 O mane be me 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 o m
Lo ye ye rum shi. Ye sen nang de. Los. Nge dan de this session ba. Okay, so let's do our dedication prayers. By means of accumulating the virtue of 3 times, and may myself and all other sentient beings be able to actualize this bodhicitta and calm abiding, which is the meditative serenity and special insight imbued by the generation of bodhicittas. And may all those beings gain a complete state of enlightenment in the future. And also imagine that individual who passed away recently, in other words, the Jaslands, she also had a chance to, receive the precious teachings of the Dharma. So she already has implanted those teachings within her. So therefore, let's also take our opportunity to dedicate our merits towards her to achieve meditative serenity and special insight imbued by our generation of bodhicitta, and especially and eventually to gain the state of complete enlightenment.
列诸相诸能觉人别中，唐德能觉一郎别的。教员子莫人都中究竟，能让诸病具见诸邪。业尽世界门当门面根，此道更多教员黄火。能道能当着我们究竟，光此天宝出了去学。最近诸郎孙波地狱，土地能者道度诸行。朝夕将此诸根超究尽，就算老命故此老典籍，能够称得数据结果。罗藏定别之名所诵，若也名色道多念究尽，光州照明过于心光。偏当电话梦里永远的，心热生活天天交错，小别心的包多点就紧，小别抱怨知道钱包，更多让我的样的心的，得到感觉就是到了。给我得到堂前老多，我给送西边叫我堂前，我光了出多我把。大仙月月早晚都跟，让我时时绕多我年。哎呀，多谢天主。